Hey guys, welcome back to Girl Talk with Sabrina and Friends. Today we are going to be talking about a topic that is very rarely discussed in public. We're going to be breaking the silence on postpartum depression. I have been feeling led to do this video for a very long time. I mean, very long. I mean, my son is 10 weeks old, so probably about the last month and a half I've been feeling this stirring about talking about it. But there's been so much pride attached to it that if I talk about this, what are people going to say? If I tell them what I'm going through, how are they going to view me then? And then I realized that if I'm feeling this way, that there's multiple people feeling this way. And so what I did this week was I talked to a lot of different moms about this specific topic of postpartum depression, and the common thread was this: they didn't want to be seen in a negative light, that there was too much pride and shame attached to it to speak on it, and a lot of them suffered in silence until it got too bad and they finally talked to someone. And so where I'm at is I am going to expose it now. I'm going to give voice to it now because postpartum depression is real. When I was pregnant, people didn't really talk about postpartum depression. I didn't know anyone who had went through postpartum depression. No one really warned me about postpartum depression. It was more like, oh, your hormones are going to go through this kind of weird thing after you have a baby. And so I was like, whatever, I can pray those things away. I'm a firm believer in declarations. I'm a firm believer of I can pray to prevent things from happening. So I just kind of would declare like postpartum depression, that's not for me. That's it. Like I would never deal with that. Never. No big deal. I've dealt with depression. I've dealt with suicide attempts in my past before Christ. So I was like, I'm totally like, that's so far-fetched for me. I got home from the hospital after having my son and I cried for the first 3 days. I mean, I cried uncontrollably. I had no appetite. I didn't want to. I had just enough energy to change his diaper, feed him, and that's it. Like I had just enough energy for him. And I thought it was normal. I had all these plans of I'm not going out. There won't be any visitors. I had a plan of what it was going to look like. But then I started getting overwhelmed. As the days went by, I was overwhelmed more and more with emotion. And I'm going to try to get through this video without crying. I was overwhelmed more and more with emotion. And then I started to feel guilty. I started to feel guilty because I had just received this amazing blessing of having a son. God just gave me this amazing blessing. And I've always wanted to be a mom. But then there was this guilt that I felt because I didn't feel full of joy. I didn't, there was not this like super excitement all the time and like this infatuation that you're just in love. Like it just wasn't present. And so I struggled and I struggled and I struggled. And so finally I was like, you know what, I'm going to get out of the house. And so I wasn't going to take my son out of the house for the first month. And I think it was 8 days. We ended up out of the house because I was struggling. And so instead of like telling someone exactly what I was going through, I just like, okay, we're going to get out of the house. Got out of the house and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. And so came back and then I still was met with the same feelings. And then one of the pastors came over to do a visit just to see him. And so I had her pray over me. And I was like, okay, that's it. Like, that's it. I mean, I believe in the power of prayer. So once we pray, it was done. Well, I still felt the random spats of just crying. I still had no appetite. I still was just, it was hard. And I felt so guilty. And so I just didn't talk to anyone about it originally. And then God put on my heart this video. And I'm like, why do I have to talk about it? Why? And I realized that it's something that's not talked about. No one told me, I mean, out of all the mom advice I got from my friends, no one told me they struggled with postpartum depression. I'm just today, I'm finding out people who silently struggled with postpartum depression and they silently were dealing with these things alone because there was a shame attached to it. And I refuse to let, if you're watching this video, to let you to continue to walk in shame and for me to walk in shame. There's a reality of postpartum depression, but it does not have to control my life. It does not have to control your life. I realized that this postpartum depression, what it does is the enemy wants to ruin something that's a blessing. God brings this blessing and he just wants to get this negative, nasty just feeling attached to it, and that's what I dealt with. I felt like I have to get up and change his diaper. I have to feed him. I have to. No, I get to. There's a blessing. I get to enjoy this. I get to stay home. We have the luxury of staying home to be moms and to be present with our children. But there is this shame that has been attached to it, and it's time that we open a dialogue and just, there's a reality of it. And I'm no longer ashamed to say that I'm dealing with it, and I'm so much better than I was. I was supposed to do this video a long time ago, but honestly, I would have been sobbing through the entire video, and it just wouldn't have been productive. You're not alone. If you are a mom currently dealing with it or have dealt with it, you are not alone. I want to encourage you to talk to someone. You don't have to suffer in silence, and the reality is there's someone waiting for us to share our story. There's someone waiting for the me too. I've been dealing with that too. And I don't believe in, just expressing like, hey, I've been dealing with postpartum depression just so that I can continue to talk about it, but to find ways to overcome it. And so what I've been doing is finding the joys in life. And so one, of course, that's my son. He is amazing. He's a ball of life. He's always laughing, and I think it's so funny that he is just, he's just completely filled with joy. And so I spend a lot of time with my son, and I try really hard to be present. And that was the first thing. I love to read. I used to love to read a long time ago. I loved to read during my pregnancy, and then there's just things that I just gave up. And so now I've been finding time to, even if it's 20 minutes or an hour while my son is asleep, instead of watching Netflix or scrolling through Facebook, in the last few weeks, I have decided I'm going to start reading again. And it's amazing what you feel like when you do things for yourself. It's amazing what happens when you just take those little moments with God. And finding those things that bring you joy, and it's just amazing. So find those little things for you that it may be writing, it may be going on a walk. And last thing I want to tell you guys is, so I have been off Facebook for probably the last 3 weeks. I've got a lot of messages about, why are you not present? Why haven't you posted any pictures? And so I realized that I was struggling so hard in the beginning that I wanted to keep up this image of like, motherhood is amazing. And so I would keep posting pictures over and over and over about how amazing motherhood was. And because I was trying to keep up with what people's appearances were on Facebook. And granted, some people are really just that happy. I'm not saying that they're not. But for me, I felt so exposed. It felt so real, that I felt like I had to keep posting pictures of him and with these amazing quotes about how amazing motherhood was, so that people knew, like, hey, like, motherhood is amazing. And I'm keeping up my facade of like, my life is great, and like, but then I realized that, you know what, cut it, I'm over it. I'm not going to keep portraying something when I know that I'm struggling, and that there's someone waiting for me to expose this postpartum depression. There's someone that needs me to give a voice to this. Motherhood is amazing, and it's the biggest blessing that I've received next to salvation. I love being a mom, and I'm convinced I am anointed for it and I am created for it. But I also know that I have been struggling with the fact of I'm sad, and that there's this negative attachment to it. And so the last few weeks, though, I have been feeling amazing. Me and my son, we go on walks now, and I'm able to get out of the bed. I've been working on my business. I've been writing more. But I was just in a hole, and you feel like you're alone, and you feel like you're not going to get out of it. But I'm here to tell you that there is joy on the other side of this postpartum depression. There is freedom on the other side of it, and that you can too expose it. You can go and talk to someone. You can get prayer. You can go talk to a confidant and just expose it. You don't have to walk through this alone. And the reality is, people are going to have something to say about your life regardless. And so let's stop worrying about how we're going to be portrayed, and really take ownership of what we feel inside and what's going on in our hearts. And not for the sake of obsessing over it, but for the sake of freedom, and for the sake of being the best moms and wives and sisters and daughters to the people around us. When we are not whole, and when we are not taking care of ourselves as moms and as women, we are going to just pour out of an empty cup, and it's not healthy. And so I want to encourage you today to share this video with someone who's struggling and for you to expose postpartum depression.